Good morning. I'm excited to get on this morning. As you guys hop on this live, let me put this in the chat. I think this will be helpful. Okay. So I've got that listed up there. It helps me, if you, and first and foremost, I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. I have lived here my whole entire life. I love it here. I have a twin sister that lives in Utah, a sister in Arkansas, a sister in Tennessee. So I love being able to have the opportunity to go and travel and visit them. I don't get to visit them very often, but my goal this year is to actually change that and spend a little bit more time with family that I never really get to see. So I'm excited to hop on this morning. I hope that you guys are having an amazing weekend. Super Bowl is just a couple days or one day away. And I'm curious to know who you guys are going for if you're going to be watching it. I think what I'm excited for is the commercials, because that's always really funny. The commercials that it's crazy that the moment the Super Bowl is over, they're starting to make commercials for the next year. So I think it's going to be funny. I don't know what the halftime show is going to be like, believe it or not. I know that there's actually another halftime show that Turning Point is doing, which I think is kind of cool. But I'm curious as to know who you guys are rooting for, right? You've got two great teams. I think it should be a really fun game. Hopefully, wherever the game is, the weather's going to be great. But I'm really excited to get on this morning. And so as you guys tune into this live, let me know where you guys are tuning in from. Okay, drop your location in the chat. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. The weather is absolutely perfect right now. I think it's like 60 degrees this morning. It's actually, I kind of want to know what it is. Let me pull this up. It is 57 degrees here. So if you've never been to Arizona, most people think of Arizona as just a hot place, and it is. But right now, the the weather is actually perfect. So Palestine, wow. Dan Paul Pole. Oh, you were on my live yesterday. Thank you for hopping back on. Let me see here. And so thank you so much for hopping on the live this morning. I'm super grateful to get on here. And I'm excited because I'm going to be talking about something that affects 93% of us. Razbid, good morning. And again, before I get started, as you guys tune in, just let me know where you guys are tuning in from. But folks, I love getting on here, right? If you are struggling with your health right now, this could change your life. And if there's somebody that you know that needs to hear this, that you know is struggling, feel free to share this live. And by the way, if you're looking at this list, if you wouldn't mind, if you're struggling with any of the things listed in that box, would you please drop a Y in the chat for yes, right? If you're struggling with diabetes, obesity, high blood sugar, right? If any one of these sounds familiar to you that's listed in this box, feel free to type a yes in the chat, because it helps me to know how many people are affected by this, right? 93% of the American population, right? And so if you're looking at this and you're like, oh my gosh, I have skin tags, I have neuropathy, I have some of these things, please put a Y in the chat and let me know if these relate to you. As Solomon said in the Bible, in all your gaining, gain understanding. When you understand how your body works, it changes everything. Okay? And I'm going to share something personal. And my hope and my prayer is that it helps you to avoid the same mistakes that I've made. Lonnie Rogers, you've got 9 of them, right? I had a bunch of these as well. And I'm so grateful that I understand what insulin resistance is. Good morning, Fadan. Okay. Good evening, right? Baku, I love that. I'm looking forward to the day to coming to Baku. And so I want to share some things with you, and I just hope and pray that it helps you to avoid the mistakes that I've made. Okay. And Magdell, thank you for being on this live. Where are you located, Magdell? Um, and whether you are following me already or you are new here, I want to welcome you to my live. Okay. I'm grateful for each and every one of you that has a willingness to learn about insulin resistance. Okay. Namibia. I love it. Okay. So folks, I had insulin resistance so bad that it nearly cost me everything a couple different times. You know, some of you know my story, but back in November of 2014, I donated a kidney to my sister's husband. And I've always been healthy. Lorraine Williams, thank you so much for the follow. Raul, thank you. We've got Arkansas here. Pocahontas, Arkansas. Mary, there's a Pocahontas in Arkansas. My sister and my brother-in-law, who I actually donated a kidney to, they live in Bentonville. But this is me. This was me back in November of 2014, and I went into the hospital because I was donating a kidney to my sister's. That's my brother-in-law, but this is my sister, and this was her husband that I gave a kidney to. And I'm so grateful for that. I was honored to be able to have done that. But folks, I didn't know what insulin resistance was because nobody talks about it. And so this is my dad. Okay. I really miss my dad. Who would have thought that the very next day on Easter Sunday, 2017 would be the day that my dad passed away? And, you know, I'm so grateful for the knowledge that I have. And, you know, I just wish that I could have helped, you know, my dad. I had a brother. I don't have a picture with my brother, but my brother was 33 years old back in January of 2005 when he passed away. And I think about this, and I'm like, if I would have known, whose life could I have helped? And so as I get on this live this morning, I really hope and pray that there's something that I share that maybe helps you to understand maybe why your A1C is high, maybe why you're not sleeping well at night, maybe why you're hungry all the time or tired. Okay. So we're going to talk about something. And folks, here's the truth. Okay. If you want to build a big business or if you want to make a big impact, right, you've got to be able to solve a really big problem. And when we're speaking health wise, there's no greater issue in the world outside of economics and everything else that insulin resistance. So my focus this morning is on insulin resistance, which happens to be the root cause behind obesity and diabetes, okay, fatty liver, Alzheimer's, dementia, right, heart disease, PCOS, erectile dysfunction, and there's many other things. And Anna Sweet Bear, I don't know what your normal levels are, but that certainly can. And Mary, my heart goes out to you. I can't tell you how many people I have connected with, literally all over the world, that have been severely affected, specifically by diabetes. Diabetes is no joke. People have lost limbs. They've, you know, almost lost their life. And this is the more reason why I get on here every day to share this, because I truly believe that this can make an impact, a positive impact in people's lives. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I had no idea what insulin resistance was because nobody talks about it. But if you struggle with belly FAT, if you struggle with skin tags or inflammation or autoimmune issues, more than 90%, excuse me, more than 90% of all the chronic issues that you and I have today are all caused by one thing. And far too often, all we are doing is throwing medications at our symptoms, but that doesn't fix the root cause. And so if you're struggling with any one of these, put a Y in the chat. And if you can't see this, let me make it a little bit bigger so you can see this. But this is the root of today's health struggles. Lisa McNeil, you're in Canada. I love my friends in Canada. I have a lot of customers and I have a few partners in Canada and I love it. Okay. I really love this. You know, November of 2014, Randy Joe, thank you for the follow. November 2014, I gave a kidney and I'm so grateful for that. But it was crazy to say that 7 years later, look at my, hi, what are you doing? Ow. Don't bite. Don't bite. He just wants to bite. She's funny. But 7 years after donating a kidney, that's when I was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney disease. And it scared me because I've always been healthy, right? I've never had these health issues. And so when my nephrologist was telling me that I had it scared the crap out of me. Because I didn't know what to do. I knew I wasn't okay. And when my nephrologist said, Troy, you need to lose some weight, you need to change your diet, and if you're unwilling to do this, you're going to end up on dialysis. And that scared me. And so I'm grateful for the knowledge that I have. You know, the United States, unfortunately, is one of the worst countries when it comes to our metabolic health, but it's worse in parts of the Middle East, Latin America, Southeast Asia. But right now in the US, 93% of people are struggling with metabolic health. And it's only getting worse. And so I want you guys to think about your own health, right? Why are we struggling with this? Right? 3 out of 4 people are overweight or obese. 54% are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And think about our adolescents, our kids, right? There's 20% more kids that are dealing with diabetes now than they did 10 years ago. And let me ask you this. Do you think from a health perspective, okay? Now I live here in Arizona in the United States, but you know, think about your country where you live, if you're here or somewhere else like Baku. And I want you guys to think about something. Do you think that as a health, you know, are we healthier today, or do you think we're sicker than we were even 5 years ago? Do you think we're getting better, or do you think we're getting worse? I'm curious as to what you guys think. You know, if we were to go to a family reunion, okay? Think about your family reunion, right? And Final Cut Lawn Care says worse. Okay, thank you for that, by the way. Think about your family reunion. How many of your loved ones are facing these health challenges? And I want to ask another question, because this is why I do this live. If you had a solution to the biggest problem, which is insulin resistance, whose life could you change? If you had a solution to the problem of insulin resistance, whose life could you change? Imagine being able to educate and empower people to reduce suffering literally all over the world. What would that mean for you? Once again, I'm guilty as charged. I had no idea what insulin resistance was because most people are not talking about it. That's one of the biggest problems, is that we're not talking about it. Most doctors, and I love doctors, I have a lot of friends, I have family members that are doctors, but most of them have no idea what insulin resistance is because they're not taught. to know what insulin resistance is, right? They are taught to diagnose and treat our symptoms. And oftentimes that treatment includes one or many different medications. How many women watching right now are struggling with fertility, PCOS, right? This is the leading cause of infertility for women. But what about low testosterone and erectile dysfunction? And no, I'm not talking about guys in their 60s. I'm talking about guys in their 20s. Fertility issues. When I was married, I'm not married anymore, but when I was, we struggled to have a family. I always wanted to have a family. And unfortunately, I couldn't have any kids. And that was always that was a burden on me for a really long time. I live my life in a way where I put it in God's hands, right? I do everything I know that I can, that's in my control, and the things that are out of my control, I just give it to God. But that's something that I've always desired. And I see the people, my friends around me who have kids, and I'm like, what would that have been like to have a little boy that looks like me, or maybe even a little girl, right? And you know, maybe someday when I'm sitting across from Heavenly Father, I might ask, but I envy people that have kids, the joy that those kids bring you, and maybe even the suffering. But that's always been a burden for me because I've always wanted to have a family. And I know that you can adopt, but for me, it's like I always wanted to have my own. And when you think about this, right? How many people do you know are spending thousands of dollars treatment and for surgeries to try and have a family, right? Fertility is a growing concern. Sperm counts are decreasing by 1% each year. And things don't seem like they're getting better. And ZI, thank you for the follow. And so, folks, if you had a solution to the problem of insulin resistance, whose life could you change? And I love what you just said, right? Dove, thank you for being on here, or Dave, sorry. They blame people but neglected the root causes, right? And I want you guys to think about your own health as I talk this morning. Okay? Are you dealing with constant fatigue? Are you carrying extra weight that you can't lose no matter what you try? Do you have migraines? I had them for 23 years. Acid reflux, brain fog. Brain fog's a big one. Okay, what about cravings? Anybody on here, cravings? I'm a foodie. I love food. Now, I don't eat 3 meals a day anymore. In fact, I eat 1 to 2 meals, and I don't snack. And my life is so much better because of it. My health is so much better because of it. And I want you guys to understand something in a second, okay? But are you dealing with kidney stones, right? Skin issues like skin tags, psoriasis, eczema. What about high blood pressure and high cholesterol? The reason why I say that is because we all struggle with different issues, but they're all caused by the same thing. Now, I want you to think about insulin for a second, right? And Susan, appreciate you hopping on. I'm sure that you'll be able to find that. Okay? But think about this, right? Every time we eat foods, is yoga pants. And I appreciate you asking that. Every single day, I have actually been restricted. I don't understand why. And so I'm always happy to share that when I communicate with people that are genuinely interested in improving their health. So I'm happy to share it, but I removed it from my live. I also had my ability temporarily restricted from being able to utilize the TikTok shop. So I I'm still going to get on here and I'm still going to teach and educate until they lift that ban, and I've appealed it. But that's the frustration that I'm dealing with now. And so I have it. And if there's people that are genuinely serious and interested in improving their health, I'm happy to share it. Okay. But I want you guys to, again, just be thinking about your own health. Okay. Folks, I had no idea what insulin resistance is, and I want you to understand what happens when you and I eat. Okay. Insulin, you're going to hear me talk about insulin a lot. Insulin is not your friend. Okay. It's not. Here's what happens when you eat food. Okay. And let me actually put this in here. And sorry to those on the tube that aren't getting this because you can't see what I'm doing. You can't see the pictures, but let me show you what happens with your blood sugar and your insulin when you eat. Okay. Whenever you eat food, you spike your blood sugar. Okay. That's normal. Your blood sugar goes up. And Darius, yes, I'm in the US. Okay. Your blood sugar goes up. And what happens is that your body releases a hormone called insulin. Okay. Insulin is released to help bring your blood sugar back down. That's normal. Okay. That is normal behavior of blood sugar and insulin. Okay. Insulin, you'll hear me talk about this as well, is considered the gatekeeper to your cells because insulin is what unlocks our cells and it is what allows the glucose to enter in to our cells so that we use it for energy. We either store it for later and use the energy later, or we use it right now. That is normal. Where insulin resistance begins is when you are eating all of the time. Remember, your blood sugar goes up, insulin's released, brings this back down. That's normal. But when we're eating all day long, guess what stays high all day long? Your insulin. Okay? So if insulin is high all the time, excuse me. If insulin is high all the time, your body is storing FAT, right? You're storing energy. And the problem is that your body is storing way too much, okay? And this is one of the reasons why you're tired all the time. This is another reason why you're hungry even after you've just eaten a meal, right? We're thinking about our next meal already, okay? This is why we've got the brain fog, right? The neuropathy, the diabetes, right? This is where all of it begins. And the reality is that you could have insulin resistance. I want you to think of insulin resistance like a fire that is burning out of control in your body. Just like how the smoke, okay, if you've ever been around a fire, there is smoke. So just like how the smoke signals that there is a fire, the symptoms that you and I feel are the smoke to the fire. And we can either choose to put the fire out and the smoke fades away, or we continue to just do the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. And this is what leads to high insulin, which leads to insulin resistance. And now you've got a bunch of health issues that your doctor wants to put you on a medication for. Okay. This is the vicious cycle that people get into, right? And I call this let me show you this picture. I kind of call this the will of torture. Okay. Because this is what a lot of people are struggling with. If any one of you know somebody or yourself that's struggling with this, put a Y in the chat. I think you guys will be absolutely amazed at how many people are dealing with these health issues, folks. It has a lot to do with the foods that we eat, but it's not just about the foods that we eat. It's actually about how often you and I eat, right? If you and I are eating all the time, actually, this is a perfect picture right here. I think this will resonate with a lot of you. Okay, let me put this right here. Right? This is what we call the SAD diet, the standard American diet. Okay? How many of you were told to start your day with breakfast, right? We snack in between breakfast and lunch, and then we have lunch, and then we snack. Maybe we have another snack when we get home, and then we have dinner, then we have dessert, and then maybe we have a snack later on. And every single one of these eating events causes a spike in your blood sugar and your insulin. And so what ultimately happens, ladies and gentlemen, is that you're stacking insulin spike on insulin spike on insulin spike, and before you know it, you're sitting across from your doctor and you're being told that you have stage 4 kidney disease, which is what I was, or you're being diagnosed with diabetes or prediabetes. Now, the biggest problem I think that we have with this is that most doctors aren't talking about this. So what they do is they treat the symptoms. How many of you have ever sat across from your doctor and your doctor's looking at your cholesterol numbers and they're telling you that your cholesterol's pretty high? And how many of you have been invited or encouraged or forced to take a statin? If you have, type the letter S in the chat for statin. Okay? It helps me to know how many people are on statins, right? And the reality is that there's more than 1 billion people globally, billion with a B, that happen to be on a statin. Swar, thank you for that. There are so many serious and dangerous side effects that come as a result of the medications that doctors prescribe, but specifically statins. Go look up the side effects. I think you'll be blown away by what you are putting in your body. I am passionate about talking about insulin resistance because it's something that people need to understand. Folks, knowledge is power, right? If we understand what insulin resistance is, if we understand why our body reacts the way that it does, or maybe why we're dealing with these health issues, don't you think that if we understand that we can make better choices, better decisions moving forward? We know what we've got to do to start improving our health. But sometimes, right, they talk to us in a language that makes no sense, because if we're confused, we're probably just going to do what they want us to do. Here's the good news. You don't need meds or extreme diets to fix it. I'm going to share 2 simple things, effective ways that can help you to reverse insulin resistance naturally, without crazy diets, without crazy exercise. And the first one is fasting. Okay? First one is fasting. Fasting is the quickest way to get your insulin under control. If you have insulin resistance, which is the majority of you, myself included, right? You've got to get your insulin under control. When you get your insulin under control, everything shifts, everything changes. And by the way, when you allow insulin levels to come down, everything changes. Metabolically, everything changes for the better. Your energy levels goes up. Your body literally starts to, lose weight, right? And how many of you may have been struggling for years to lose weight? How many of you, and Alchemist, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Really do appreciate each and every one of you that are hitting the follow button. Love and appreciate that. And thank you so much. Okay. And if you feel like, Maria, thank you, that if you feel that what I'm sharing is making sense, feel free to tap the screen, because when you do that, it lets TikTok know that this is information that needs to be shared. So fiber, I'm going to get into fiber in just a second. And Amira, thank you so much for the follow. Okay. There's 3 macronutrients. Okay. We've got protein, we've got fats, and we've got fiber. Fiber, Maggie, Uncle Jay, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. So protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Somebody just mentioned that, right? Which one of those would you imagine is not necessary? And Lilawati from beautiful Guyana, I hope to come there. One of these days I'm going to come there. I really am. I'm looking forward to the day when I can travel there and see my brothers and sisters on the other side of the world. Yumi, thank you so much. Miji, good morning. And so let me go back to fasting for a second, because fasting, I think, is an art that we don't think about very much. And Frankie, thank you for the follow. Okay. Fasting is literally the quickest way to lower your insulin levels. Because here's what happens. When you skip a meal, and I skip breakfast all the time, PC, thank you for the follow, and Amoy Bent, thank you for the follow. When I skip a meal, or when you go longer periods of time without eating food, okay, what you're doing is you're avoiding glucose spikes. And when you avoid the glucose spike, you are avoiding the insulin spike that comes with it. That's key. And when this happens, your energy levels goes up, because now I want you to understand something, and this is basic biology, but your body has two fuel sources. You are either burning sugar from the foods that you're eating, or you are switching over and now you are creating ketones, right? Your body is literally burning your stored FAT. You cannot store and burn at the same time. Your body's only doing one or the other, right? The majority of us, though, are storing it. Why? Because we're eating 3 meals a day and we're snacking all day long. Like literally, there are people from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed, they are eating or snacking or drinking sugar drinks all day long. And if that's you, and your insulin's way up here, and now you understand why. So when you go longer periods of time without eating or taking in sugar and carbs, okay, what you're doing is you're allowing the insulin levels to come down. Okay, you're avoiding glucose spike, which is key, but your insulin has a chance to come down. And really what you're doing is you're giving your gut a break. Okay, you're giving your gut a break from insulin. Really, you're giving insulin a break, but that's key to improving your health. Okay, if we eat all the time, your insulin will constantly always be high. And this is the problem, because I want you to understand the dichotomy between glucose and insulin. Okay, your glucose will go up and down very fast. It's like a rabbit. Okay, rabbits are fast. Okay, now how many of you know a turtle that is fast? Right, insulin is like a tortoise. And Tanya, good morning. Thank you for the follow. Okay, a tortoise or a turtle is slow. And so here's what happens. Your blood sugar goes up and then it comes crashing down. This is one of the reasons why oftentimes after you've eaten a meal, you are tired. That's why. Or you're hungry again. That's why. The problem with insulin is by the time it starts to work its way down, this is when you are ready for a snack or you're eating again. And so you're spiking your insulin again. Does that make sense? So throughout the day, if we're doing this, your insulin stays high. It never has a chance to come down. And when you go to bed at night and your insulin's high and it starts to come down, and it does start to come down even a little bit more, by the time you wake up, you are repeating the same cycle all day long. And what most people don't realize is that you could have high insulin for 10 to 20 years before it leads to a diabetes diagnosis. Did you know that? See, this fire is burning out of control for a long time. This is why I love fasting, because when you fast, you're bringing that back down. And if you want to win this game of insulin resistance and fighting it, that's a key way to do that. Now, the second thing that I teach is fiber. See, we are not getting enough fiber in our diet. Somebody asked, right, do we really need, if we're not eating carbs, do we need fiber? Fiber is key, because fiber is what slows your digestion down and allows your gut to get the nutrients that we need. Did you know that the food industry back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, they started intentionally taking fiber out of our food? Now, you notice here I have a picture of an apple and I have a picture of a bowl of rice. Now, why do you think I have a picture of an apple in its pure form and a glass of apple juice, right? And you've got a bowl of wild rice, and then now you've got a bowl of white rice, okay? Every carbohydrate that is made in nature, okay? You've got apples, rice, wheat, sugarcane. It all comes wrapped in fiber. Isn't that interesting, right? And K and T, I'll mention some fiber foods like broccoli and beans, okay? But every carbohydrate comes wrapped in fiber. Now, if you and I take an apple, you and I could probably eat, depending on the size of the apple, maybe 1 to 2 apples before you start feeling full. Does that make sense? So if you're eating the apple with the pill, that pill is the fiber. It's going to fill you up. It's very satiating. But if I take 3 and 4 or 5 apples and I juice it, and I make a glass of apple juice, or you take your orange and you juice that and you're making orange juice, you are literally drinking sugar water. And so when you drink that apple juice, not only will it cause your blood sugar to go up like a rocket, but then it's going to come crashing down like the rocket's returning back to Earth. And this is what causes you to be hungrier. Maybe you're craving more sugar. And this is the vicious cycle. Now, this right here, you've got a bowl of what wild rice really looks like, right? The wild rice has the bran, BRAN, or fiber intact. But when the food industry removes that fiber, we are left with this bowl of white rice. I want to tell you something. You and I would never, ever, ever eat as much rice as we eat today if it still had the fiber intact, because fiber is what fills you up. Fiber is what actually helps to protect your heart. It protects your kidneys. Okay, fiber is crucial. Okay, we need fiber. You know, fiber does not get broken down like carbs does. And that's where the magic happens, because it really helps to slow your digestion down. It slows the absorption of the sugar from the foods that we eat. And that's a good thing, right? Because it helps to prevent or eliminate the glucose spike. And if you're eliminating the glucose spike, you're also eliminating the insulin spike. Now, when we think about the 3 macronutrients, we've got protein, fats, and carbohydrates, right? Protein and fats have literally little to no spike, okay? Ephraim, I love it. Ethiopia, thank you so much for being on. I love it, okay? But right out of the 3 macronutrients, protein and fats have little to no effect on your insulin. And Cynthia, thank you so much for the gift. Appreciate you. Okay, protein, fats have almost literally no effect on your blood sugar spike, okay, which is good. Carbohydrates, on the other hand, right, they literally blow up your blood sugar like a roller coaster. How many of you grew up like me believing that breakfast was the most important meal of the day? How many of you were ever told, hey, breakfast is the most important meal of the day? It's not, by the way. Okay, Cynthia, thank you. Right? This was brought to you by this corporation, right? And they created this idea that breakfast was this most important meal of the day. Do you guys realize that if you start your day with a bowl of cereal or a glass of orange juice, or maybe you go to Einstein's Bagel here in Arizona and you get a loaded bagel, do you guys realize that when you do that, you are literally blowing up your blood sugar like a roller coaster? How many of you have ever noticed that when you eat a meal like this, you go to work and you're already ready for a nap, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I need to curl up in the fetal position and just go to sleep. Or how many of you, when you get to work, you're like, I'm hungry. You guys realize that this is the vicious cycle that we put ourselves in every day. Uni, thank you for the gift. We are putting ourselves in this vicious cycle every single day. And Faru, thank you for the follow. And we wonder why we're trying to lose weight, but you keep gaining it. And some of you, right, this isn't about, like I have people that tell me I'm eating less than my spouse and I'm still gaining weight. It's not about eating less. It's about eating less often, right? Back in the 1990s, we were told to move more and eat less, right? They called this the calories in, calories out approach. But we were also told that we were supposed to eat a bunch of small meals throughout the day because that keeps what high? It keeps your metabolism high. Folks, it's not about eating less. It is about eating less often. Here's the truth. If we go back 100 or even 200 years ago, our ancestors didn't have a McDonald's or a Starbucks to go to. They were lucky if they had 1 to 2 meals a day, right? They hunted for their food, they planted their food, right? They were lucky to have multiple meals throughout the day. And we are living in an era where we literally, from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed, we're just eating all the time. And Jose256, thank you for the follow. Now, I was one of those. I'm a foodie. I can eat with the best of them. Ron Janine, I miss you. We need to connect. Leo, thank you for the follow. But folks, I love food. And that's our problem. Some of us can't put the fork or the spoon down. And I just want you to understand something. This is basic biology. You cannot outrun your fork at all. Folks, I love food. And here's the thing. Life is so short. Who wants to eat a specific diet for the rest of your life? And I'm not saying that diets don't work. They don't work for me. I don't follow a diet. I eat the foods that I want, which is why I use and teach the Feel Great system. It's exactly why I do it. Okay. I sip on an amazing chlorogenic acid tea. It shuts the food noise off. It literally helps me go longer periods of time without thinking about food, without putting food into my mouth. And when I do that, it's allowing my insulin to come down. When insulin is down, the fat's gotta go. See, if you and I are eating all the time, we are constantly storing FAT. But when insulin levels are down, this is where your body is literally getting rid of your stored FAT. And Maca Kid, you're not alone, man. Right? You eat a lot of bad calories, right? At least you're acknowledging that, right? How many of you notice, like in Maca Kid, I would ask you, have you noticed that when you do that, you don't sleep through the night? You're waking up multiple times throughout the night. And that's because, right, your temperature rises, your body's constantly processing the food. I encourage everybody, and Tinsi and Laiut, thank you for the follow. And JW, thank you. Abdul Rahamense, thank you for the follow. Here's what I would encourage you. Stop eating 4 hours before you go to bed. If you know you're going to bed at 9 o'clock, have dinner at 5. If you're going to bed at 10, have dinner at 5 or 6. Okay? But stop eating or drinking anything 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. If you can do that, I promise you, you're going to notice a difference in your energy levels, right? Your brain fog. And Uncle Jay, feel free to put questions in here. Absolutely. I've got just maybe about 10, 15, maybe 5, 10 more minutes, and then I've got to run. Okay. And here's what I would do, Maca Kid. I would, in your last meal, right, if you have dinner at 6 p.m., what I would encourage you to do is make sure that that meal is full of protein and good fibers, right? Have protein. Because when you have protein, it's going to help you feel satiated for longer periods of time. But the other thing, somebody asked, fiber, right? What are some sources of fiber? Now, this is what I use every single day, and I've got to be careful because I don't have my TikTok shop right now. I've been suspended for that. But I use a system that's incredible. And so broccoli, beans, flax, chia seeds, avocados, artichokes, these are some good sources of fiber, okay? And so when you have fiber with your meal or before your meal, again, what you're doing is you're creating this barrier. And the reason why I use the fiber that I use is because it is a blend of soluble and insoluble fibers, and it comes together and it creates a barrier in my stomach, okay? And when I have this fiber, it literally surrounds the lining of my gut, and it becomes this thick, viscous gel, and it surrounds the food. Okay, and it slows that down. Now, maca kid. Okay, what I'm sipping on is a natural form of what you are using every day that has a lot of side effects. What I use is a natural metformin. It does the same thing. Okay. And EMG, thank you so much for the follow. And folks, I have put this, there's a form, right, that you can fill out to learn more and stay in touch. Okay. I've put that there. So make sure to put your information in. Okay. And I'm happy to connect with any one of you. Okay. So fiber, okay, have it with your meal or before. Now, this is why I take this, okay? I love this fiber. You're not going to find a better fiber supplement, in my opinion, right? This fiber was made by, and some of you might even remember Rexall Drugs, right? Rexall Drugs used to be the biggest drugstore in the world. And Satara, thank you so much, okay? What I'm sipping on is the natural natural metformin. And Fabulous, thank you for the follow. Gillerm, where did that go? Thank you to everyone who's hitting the follow button. Satara, you're amazing. I appreciate that. Hey, Janet, thank you for the follow. Okay. So what I'm sipping on right now is literally shutting the food noise off. Okay. It shuts it off. I need that. And thank you for the football. Who's ready for, Super Bowl? I'm excited for that. I'm more probably excited for the commercials than anything else. And MJ, thank you so much. Ari, thank you. Okay. So when you have fiber with your meal or before, and somebody asked a question about flax is great. Chia seeds are great. Okay. And so what I'm sipping on is a chlorogenic acid tea. Okay. It is a natural, it helps to increase your body's own production of GLP-1. Okay. It's a natural metformin. And believe it or not, this fiber that was created by Rexall Drugs, some of you remember Rexall Drugs, they created this blend of fiber back in the late 80s, early 90s, and they created it for two reasons. One, they wanted to eradicate heart disease naturally, but the other reason is because the food industry started intentionally removing fiber from our foods. Now, why do you think the food industry would start taking fiber from our foods? Because you eat more. Think about this, folks. Have you ever noticed when you go to a restaurant, have you ever wondered why when you go to a certain restaurant, they bring you bread or chips to start your meal? And Larry Severson, thank you for the follow. They're not bringing you the bread and chips because they're trying to be nice. They could be the nicest people in the world. That's not the reason. They bring it to you because they know that the moment you have those chips and salsa and the bread from Texas Roadhouse, right, with that sweet butter, it literally blows up your blood sugar. It goes through the roof. And your insulin is released to go and bring this back down. But the problem is it causes you to eat more. Because when that blood sugar goes up, 20 minutes later, it comes crashing down, and it causes you to be even hungrier than you were before you went to that restaurant. It's a great marketing tactic, right? Because you ultimately will end up spending more, right? When you're finished with your meal and you've already destroyed 2 baskets of bread from Texas Roadhouse, you've eaten your steak and your sweet potato and a salad and fries maybe, okay? And now you should be paying your bill, but they're walking past and they're like, hey, how many of you would like to see the dessert menu? You guys know what I'm talking about. And ultimately you end up eating more food. And then you go home. And what do you do when you go home? Oh my gosh, I'm tired. So you're sitting in a chair and you're putting on your TV and, oh, let's have a snack. Let's have popcorn or something or ice cream, right? You guys get what I'm saying. Because this was me. This is what I did literally every single day. Guys, I eat 1 to 2 meals a day. This is exactly why I teach the Feel Great system. It literally has changed my life in ways that diets and medications never would have been able to do. This is why I share it with people literally all over the world, right? And this is what I'm sipping on, okay? It makes fasting easier. Okay. I love this chlorogenic tea. It is made from the yerba mate plant that is derived in South America, Argentina, okay, Brazil. But, for any of you that follow Dr. Andrew Huberman, he raves on yerba mate's ability to suppress your appetite. It aids in weight loss, fat loss, right? It's incredible. This is why I sip on this. I love it. And Mafia, you're welcome. And Elevate Your Health, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. 75 pounds down, feeling amazing. And folks, I want you to understand, and I've got just a few minutes and I've got to hop off. Okay, Detroit Pistons, cheese seeds are great. Okay, let me say this. Okay, November of 2014, I donated a kidney to my sister's husband, and I'm super grateful for that. Okay, and Janet, I'm going to address that. In fact, if you haven't, please, fill out the form. I would be happy to connect with you. Okay, I can tell you this: there's zero contraindications. Okay, there's zero contraindications with this. So whether you're on one medication or 100, it works. Okay, and I would encourage you to work with your doctor. Believe it or not, your doctor can actually look this up in the physician's desk reference. Okay. What was I starting to say? But when I was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney disease, 7 years after donating a kidney, I learned about this 2.5 years later. And within a month and a half of being on it, I had lost 32 pounds. I had migraine headaches that I had for 23 years that went away in the very first week. My acid reflux, my brain fog, anxiety, depression, sleep apnea, all of this improved or went away. And when I went back to my nephrologist 5 months later, my kidney doctor says, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. Folks, I've been using this system since January of 2024. I will never stop taking it. If I showed you how many people are affected by this in a positive way, you would never want to stop sharing it because of the impact that it's making. I always thought that I was going to be a police officer. That was my goal in life, of being a police officer. And I'll be honest, I'm grateful that I'm not. I feel like I make more of an impact sharing this than I think I ever would as a police officer. Look at this. This is my buddy, Jimmy. Jimmy had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And Ray, Val, and Zanebi, thank you for the follow. Okay. He had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. He had type 2 diabetes, blood pressure's down, sleep apnea, depression. Okay. Acid reflux, all of these things started to improve. Roxy, thank you for the follow. I love it. Okay. This is why I share this. Okay. This is a text message that I got from a customer. I want you guys to look at this. This is incredible. Marge, thank you for the follow. No, he does not. He reversed non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. He reversed type 2 diabetes. And look at this. His name is Kobe. Okay. He's down 81.5 pounds. He's reversed type 2. He's been over 6 months on this. His IBS, gout, vertigo, depression, gone. He was prescribed what Janet, I think, is using, and instead got on this instead. And his A1C went from 11.3 to 5.8. Guys, there's hundreds of these that I have on here. This is, Claudia. She was a type 2 diabetic for 23 years. Seriously, 23 years. And by the way, for the 23 years, she was taking metformin. How many of you love taking those medications? Okay. I'm not a fan of them. Okay. Most people have no idea that you can actually improve your metabolic health without the need for meds or diets. Now, I want you to understand something plain and simple. I am not anti-doctor. I am not anti-medicine. I am anti-ignoring the root cause. I think that you have to understand why you're having these health issues. And if you see, remember, knowledge is power. Okay. Knowledge is power. And it helps you to understand what it is so that the next time you're going to your doctor, you can have you can have a more intelligent conversation with your doctor because now you know. Folks, I would imagine that if most of you on here were to go to your doctor and ask your doctor what insulin resistance is, they would probably have no answer for you. And folks, we have a solution to a big problem, and hardly anybody knows about it. Now, some of you were asking like where the information was in my TikTok profile, and unfortunately, I get restricted all the time. So I removed my LINK because I'm tired of getting restricted. You know, I was selling this even on TikTok Shop, but they have taken my ability away from TikTok Shop. So, folks, I'm happy to share any of this with you. Okay, there is a form on the bottom left that if you fill that out, I'm happy to connect with you. If you want to have, and Billy, thank you for the follow. And if you want to have a question, guys, it's like $5.10 a day for a system that has saved my life. It has changed so many others. To be on this for 5 months and to have your nephrologist tell you, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. This has completely changed my life. I'm so grateful for this. And I'm grateful and honored that my doctor shared something that has forever changed, or my friend shared this with me. I've been on it for over 2 years. January of 2024 is when I started using this. Okay. It has been an absolute game changer. And Barb, thank you for the follow. Let me pin this, or no, I think the form is still in there. But folks, I am living proof. No, the price has always been the same since the day I purchased this. Okay. Now on TikTok Shop, yes, I don't have my TikTok Shop. It's so you can't get it on here in TikTok Shop, but I'm happy to send you guys the information. Okay. In fact, if you guys fill that out and if you guys want me to send that, I'm happy